So it's the 4th of April 2013, and we're here at Henderson Age Concern Centre. My name is Rebecca Lodge. I'm the interviewee, and this is the interviewer. This is my interviewee.
Hello there, my name is Peter Gordon Greener. My age is 65 in June 24th of this year, which means I was born in 1938. Perfect?
Okay, so thinking about your early life, whereabouts were you born?
I was born in New End Hospital, Hampstead, which is on New End, which is now very des res. It was sold off some years ago to get the Royal Free out of the red. I think it was sold for about 2.5 million, the whole side, quite a few years ago. And at the time we were living in Burgh House Gardens, West Hampstead, which was bombed during the Second World War, and we were evacuated to Stockton-on-Tees. We did return back to Hampstead in 1946, I think it was, 1946. Well, Hampstead in those days was the Hampstead village. We had little family shops, you name the shop, we had it, all types. Very closed community, people had never moved away. A lot of the streets now, which are extremely expensive to live on, were run down shanty towns. So you'd have 3 or 4 families living per house, outside toilet, no baths. Hence, at the bottom of Flowers Walk were the public baths and the laundrette, where the ladies of the manor would congregate to sort out all their problems, usually pertaining to lack of money and husband being drunk in the Flowers pub, which was the social area. I mean, Flowers Walk, the pub itself, was the premier pub in Hampstead. If you weren't in there by 6, you couldn't get in. Chock-a-block. Great place to grow up in. As kids, you had the whole of the Hampstead Heath. You could roam all day, every day, especially during the summer. And it provided everything: horse riding, fishing, cricket, birds nesting. Learned to swim at the Gospel Oak Baths, then progressed to the Hampstead Ponds, so I could actually fish and swim in the same water. It wasn't very hygienic, but never mind. I was young and bomb-proof. Anything else you want to ask?
What do you think prompted the change in, the area? And you said that
Well, what it was, the families had been in residence for years upon years upon years, so it would be the children, grandparents, sometimes even great grandparents, living more or less cheek to jowl. So big companies came along and could see the potential and would offer a sum of money. And the sum of money may have been £500 in the old money, pounds, shillings and pence, which was an absolute fortune. Then these people would be offered to transfer out to one of the new towns, and most of them took up the offer to move out. The property companies then moved in, redeveloped the area, and then sold the houses off, or they turned them into flats. So Flowers Walk, for instance, Gayton Road, Gayton Crescent, all the roads around were shanty towns. But now you couldn't get a house in the top part of Hampstead, I guess, for under 3 million, maybe more. That's progress.
And what do you think that, or do you think that has impacted on other areas of the village, the town?
Well, in my personal opinion, it's taken away the soul of Hampstead. Hampstead is now just a sort of another, you can find it anywhere, sort of place where money's moved in and taken the soul out of the area. You have few survivors on the sort of peripheries who can recall the days of yore as compared to the days now. Alright, things have improved, i.e. people have central heating or double glazing, internal bathroom, internal toilet, but at the same time it's split the family. So say on a street you might have 3 generations of a family. So going back to my day, no television. If you had a radio, you were fairly rich. very few cars, could play on the streets, etc., etc. So people could keep an eye on the children. Children actually played out on the streets, pre-computer, pre-everything else. So you had to make your own sort of entertainment, which is great fun. We should really enjoy it.
What kind of things did you do as a child in Hampstead?
In Hampstead, well, let me see. Joined the Boy Scouts, and that was sort of run from a place called Biggisham Hall, which belonged to the C of E Church. That was sold off in due course for Des Res. Joined the ATC, the Air Training Corps, on Willoughby Road. So I'd be occupied Wednesday evening, Saturday afternoon, and Friday evening with all these activities. And then, of course, one gets to a certain age, and then one discovers girls, and they bring a sort of a different slant on things. They really do. But I mean, we could play street games called Tin Can Tommy. Ever heard of it? No. Tin Can Tommy, Pass the Parcel, Kiss Chase, where we discovered girls, street cricket, making our own trolleys of wooden boxes, get pram wheels, and go from the Whitestone Pond at the top and go down the hills. Of course, we didn't have any brakes, but there's so few cars. The only usually accident would be going too fast. You tip over, end up in the UN hospital, as was. And as children, we were all very well known in the casualty departments of the UN hospital, because we go in there about once a week. And the casualty sister says, "Oh, for God's sake, not you again, what's the problem now?" And you go in there and you may have ripped your fingernails off, or cut your arm to pieces, or fallen out of a tree, had a concussion, or broken your ribs. All types of stuff. Games on the streets, which they don't do now. I don't see kids playing out much anymore. You know, I know it's a whole different ball game, but that's the way it is.
So did you play a lot on Hampstead Heath as well?
We certainly did. I mean, Hampstead Heath was this vast wilderness, an absolute vast wilderness. All right, now it's been trimmed somewhat, but they still leave bits and bobs as natural woodland, etc., etc., etc. But we could roam as kids. You take a packed lunch, and we could roam across the heath, way over to Highgate, way down to Golders Green. I mean, you couldn't believe the space. It was absolutely wonderful. And we'd make our own bows and arrows and catapults, and we'd have gang fights on the heath. And then we discovered air guns, which were far more lethal. And I do bear some scars. I couldn't outrun a piece of lead coming to me. But again, it's all part and parcel. But it was a superb place to grow up in. It really was. No chaperones. Just wander across and thought nothing of it.
You said you were evacuated during the war, but what do you remember of Hampstead when you came back?
Well, Hampstead, when I came back, I guess I'd have been about 8. 8, yeah, about 8. So when we moved into, it was council housing, it's now called social housing, I believe, because there's a stigma attached. It was fantastic, because we had a bath and a toilet, and we had a coal fire. But everybody was, oh yeah, and even going back those days, you had coal deliveries. Now you imagine the lorries, and pre the lorries it was a horse and cart, coming up the hills carrying coal. So inside each flat would be a coal bunker. So the coalman would come up the stairs with his 100-weight of coal and tip it into the bunker. So of course you had coal dust everywhere. It was like living in a mining community. The rest of the flat, no heating whatsoever. And when it got really cold, I'm sure you've heard this before, the inside of the windows would ice up, so you couldn't open the windows. They were ice. But it still had that little old village atmosphere. It really did. Because when the ladies went shopping, they would say, "I'm just going up to town." And they might take 2 hours to go shopping, because would always meet someone who they knew, who would meet somebody, and it was just a lovely little local community.
Was shopping a different experience then than it is now then?
Well, shopping, let me see if I can count offhand. You had at least 4, maybe 5 greengrocers, at least 3 or 4 butcher shops, tailoring shops, cobbler shops, wet fish shops, haberdashery stores, old-fashioned groceries, where as you walked in you could smell the tea, the coffee. Sainsbury's had 2 little branches up on the high street, and you could go in there and they would cut half a pound of cheese of a 56-pound block, or would patch you 4 ounces of butter, or would sell you 2 eggs, whatever you wanted. The stores have long vanished, and nowadays, of course, what's happened is the giant retail world is taking over. A little place called Tesco's, so named after Cohen and Tessa. So Tesco's. There you are. Yeah, it was a very different place in those days. Oh, in actual fact, we had a fish and chip shop. Yeah, I do remember that. Oh, we had old-fashioned sweet shops. A chemist shop, not a pharmacy, a chemist. And the chemist, you'd go in there sort of whatever, the chemist would make something up for you. Because in those days it was pre-NHS, so to call a doctor cost money. And people didn't have money, as such. But it's progress, I guess.
And what do you remember about the pubs?
Well, the pubs, we had numerous. You could actually do a pub crawl in Hampstead. This is when I got to my sort of mid to late teens. So you could actually do a pub crawl. You could start the Hare and Hounds next door to the Bull and Bush, come up the hill towards Jack Straw's down to the Coach and Horses. You could turn left into New End. You had the Duke of Hamilton, which is still there as a pub. You had the White Bear. You had the Wells Hotel, which was a pub. Going down Roslyn Hill, you had the Duke of Bohemia, you had the Rosalind, you had the George, you had the Haverstock. We had 20 or 30 pubs. Most of them, unfortunately, might have been sold off or turned into upmarket wine bars, which they call gastro. Which I find very strange, because I can't see how the hell you can fill a gastro pub every night, 7 nights a week, with people eating gastro food. It'll be a short-term thing, and then it'll go back to as it was, a proper boozer. This is what the Duke of Hampstead advertises itself as, a proper boozer.
So not many of them left in Hampstead.
It's the only one. It's the only one. The only one left in Hampstead that's still stuck to its roots. Half have been sold off and turned into Des Res, and as I say, the other half have gone gastrofied, which is, if what people want, good luck. Personally, it's not what I want. I want a pub. Sells good beer, a game of cards, a game of darts, and that's it. That's what a pub's all about.
What do you remember about your school days? Whereabouts did you go to school?
I went to St Dominic's School, which is a Catholic school, Southampton Road, next door to the Dominican Priory. And basically all I learnt at the school was if you survived a whole week without getting into a fight, you were very fortunate. It was a terrible, terrible rundown area, really rundown. And I've actually seen kids coming into the school with no shoes and wearing hand-me-downs. Kids crawling with fleas. That was standard. There were no bars. People didn't have bars. People were poor. I mean, really poor. This is before you had outreach workers, social workers, and so on and so forth. But you got by. You had to get by. No other choice, because there was nobody out there to pick you up and smooth the way. So you just got on with it. That's how it was. I went to St Dominic's because it was an RC's, a Roman Catholic school, and I am a Roman Catholic with a very small RC. But that's the way it goes. So I was quite good on religious instruction. I was stuck in the front of the class for that. and I thought it was pretty good because I knew all the answers to the questions asked by the priest. But that's as far as it went. Left at 15 on a Friday. Left at 15 and started work on the Monday. And when you started work, the normal working week then was 48 hours. There was no time and a half, there was no double time. So if you finished at 4 on a Saturday, you were absolutely pleased as punch, because you had a whole Saturday and then a Sunday off. 48 hours was standard.
Yeah. And what was your first job after school?
My first job was an apprenticeship in a shop called Drayson's, which was on Heath Street. I lasted, I think, about 3 months. Didn't last too long. But in those days it didn't really matter, because you could leave a job Monday, start a new job Tuesday. Or you could start a job any time you wanted. I mean, there was no unemployment benefit, so basically you had to go to work. So I did a variety of jobs, and then I went up to North Wales, to a place called Abu Dhabi, and I did the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme. I was up there for a month. Whilst I was up there, I got this yen to go to sea. So I went back there and did a 8 week training course to go to sea in Abu Dhabi. First place I ever heard a foreign language was Abu Dhabi, because they all spoke Welsh. That Welsh was normal. And then I signed on my first ship 3 days before my 16th birthday. And then 4 months later, I was going around the Japanese islands. Wasn't bad at all. Wasn't bad. Pretty good, pretty good. But I was the only Englishman on the boat. So all the rest came from Liverpool. And we called them Scousers. And because I came from London, I was a Cockney. And the Scousers got an extremely strange accent. I don't know if you've ever heard it. Shall I get around, kid, like, you know? Sort of thing like that. Anyway, it was a good old life. Good times, good times. And I did that, I think, must have been 3 years. Probably getting on for 4 years. In immersion, travelled all over the place. And then, unfortunately, basically it was due to a lady. I missed my ship. Tried desperately to get back to the company, or any ship, but in the meantime I was conscripted and put in the army. I've never recovered since.
So how long were you in the army for?
I did 2 years, which was called national service. And if you say national service, it sounds like you volunteered for it. But basically, it was conscription. Now, the only way you could get out of conscription, you could become a conscientious objector, prove your case, but you still have to do 2 years in a charitable organisation, a hospital, or work on the land, whatever it might be. So I thought to myself, well, been called up, go for it, which I did. I went for it, and after a while, you learn there's 2 rules. It's the army's rules or the army's rules, and if you decide to break them, you're going to get jumped on. The best thing to do is keep a low profile, do what you have to do, get through it and get out. But in actual fact, it did do a lot of guys good, because a lot of guys found their home in the army and would sign on for an extra year, which meant you were a regular soldier. 3 years. So when I started, it was in 57, yeah. So I was on £1 a week. That was 240 pennies. A lot of money. A lot of money. But if you signed for the extra year, you became a regular soldier. You got another 7 and 6. That was nearly 10 shillings. Nearly 50 pence. A lot of money. A lot of money. But as you progress through your service, you qualify in different vocations. So I got a qualification in high-speed telegraph and radio operating, which gave me another 25 shillings a week, I think it was. So at the end of my service, I was earning £3.76. A lot of money. That was a lot of money, because everything else was found. It really was. So, and I came out. I can't say it did me any harm. Can't say it did me any good. But you learn to you've got to live with guys your own age, or even younger. In my case, I think I was about 20. So the average age of call-up would be about 18. So I'd be a little bit older than most of the guys. But you had to gel. You gelled. And the idea in the army is to get 30 guys, individuals, and turn them into a unit. ASAP. And it's very good the way they do it. It's done with constant screaming and bullying and chasing and whatever, but it works. So after 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, you're beginning to like soldiers. You're moving as a unit, which is what the army wants. You know, it's good. It's okay. It's all right. Should they fetch it back now or not? Can't see the kids nowadays handle it, because they would just crack, crumble, fall under, and their human rights perhaps have been trampled on, or whatever it might be. You know, so it's part of history. It's vanished, and it disappeared. There was a guy called Mr. Harold Macmillan, not Harold Macmillan. Yeah, it was Macmillan, wasn't it? Yeah, Tory MP. And one of his ploys to get into power was to abolish national service, which I think was abolished in '61. So after that became a professional army. All forces now professional.
So what did you do when you came out of the army?
Well, when I came out of the army, when I came out in '59, I did a sort of travelling through Europe, basically thumbing with a backpack. And this was way before you had motorways, etc., etc. And it was an adventure. It was a whole adventure, because in those days people didn't go abroad. You went abroad if you were in the services, but most people's holidays would be within the UK. And there was a guy called Freddie Laker, way back, and he introduced the budget airlines, and he would fly people to Spain, little places in Spain, which were tiny, tiny little villages, which are now terribly commercialised, and be the first time the majority of English had ever been abroad, ever. And they'd all come back with terrible sunburn, and usually picked up some sort of a disease from eating foreign food, etc., 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 etc. Good fun. Then did a bit backpacking, went through France, into Italy, down to Italy, went to a little village in Italy called Il Villaggio del Pescatore, which means the little village of the fishing people. And I learned their basic, very basic Italian. Well, in those days, being a little, it's like in Cornwall, as was 50 years, 60 years ago, a village was a village. Now they're all towns, or new towns, or even cities now. And it was the same there. Things hadn't changed in hundreds of years. And like on the boats fishing, we didn't have any motors, so we had a sail and oars. And then I enjoyed that very much. And eventually came back to UK and decided I'd get a job. So I went into the health service, and I trained as an auxiliary nurse. But in those days, I gave in to peer pressure, because men didn't go into nursing. You see, if you went into nursing, sort of a question mark there. So then I went into, I did all types within the NHS, and I actually retired from the NHS. Yeah, I did. And I worked in a hospital called Gray's Inn, that's gone. Lawn Road, gone. Hampstead General, gone. New End Hospital, gone. And another one which I can't remember now. All been sold off at Des Res.
Did the smaller hospitals in Hampstead, or were they all sold off to make the Royal Free? Was that the result of?
Yeah, well, the Royal Free had been the Royal Free. The plans had been drawn up, and the building was already starting underway. And there were two hospitals stood there. One was at Hampstead General, which was a tiny, about 150 beds maybe. Another one was a Lawn Road, and those two had to make way for the building of. and then massive hospital at Gray's Inn Road, which was sold off, plus the accommodation nurses, to fund the Royal Free, which is what happened to New End. That was sold off because Royal Free was in the red, I guess. I think it was 2.5, 3, something like that. So that was sold off, and then the nursing accommodation, which housed how many nurses? Let me think. 80, possibly 100. That was sold off, and that all the nurses were dispersed left, right, and centre. Strange thing is, that happened, I guess. The home was sold maybe 12, 15 years ago. Still vacant. Very strange. Very strange. But I've no doubt there's big money involved in it. So whichever company's got it, the longer you can hold on to it, I mean, we will get on an upsurge, and property prices will jump through the roof again. It'll probably be turned into mansion flats or a hotel or whatever, something like that.
So, what did you do after you retired from the NHS?
Retired from the NHS, I joined Age Concern. Well, I'm now speaking to you at this present moment. There's a place called Henderson Court, and they have a very varied programme Monday through to Friday of events pertaining to, shall we say, the more senior person. It's a great outlet for me, really, really good, because it gives me somewhere to go 3 or 4 times a week. We still have several left in Camden, believe it or not, age concern units, which are very, very important to people, extremely important for people who are confined to their flat, room, whatever it might be, because they've been brought in here by transport, spend the whole day here, get a hot meal, talk to people, socialise to people, take them back home until the next day. I find it a great place, and the staff are really well motivated here. I've got to say that, but they are. Didn't pick me up. Yeah, so trouble is, when you retire, and all people will find this, you have to get used to not having wages coming in, and very rarely will the pensions, you can exist, you'll get by. Anyway, one day I was going past a little place in Hampstead called the Hampstead Museum, Burgh House, if anybody's ever heard of it, and on the notice board outside it said required steward. Well, my name's Gordon, but even so I applied for the job. So I had the interview next day, and I said, what does this post involve? And so the people interviewing me said, well, we don't really know. We need somebody to take control of weddings, supervise weddings, make sure people don't get outrageous. I said, tell you what I'll do, we'll give it a month either way, okay? If I don't fit the bill, you put me on a month's notice. If I don't like it, I'll give you notice after a month. And I said, not only that, I said, I'm quite handy. And they said, what do you mean with tools? I said, no, I just live up the road, so I can be here within seconds if anything goes wrong, blah, blah, blah. So I started as a steward. I was the only one. And so weddings, we had quite a few, but not as many as now, since we had a new event manager coming in. But I found it quite difficult after a while, because if you're working Saturday, you might start a wedding at 3 and finish at 11, and then come in again on Sunday to do a concert. I was the only person. And then over the years, thank goodness, we've managed to employ other staff to take charge of various events, which is shared out now amongst the people themselves. So I've now retired from the sort of front of house, basically I guess to the back of house. So looking through the What's On magazine, which pertains to Burgh House, I see I'm designated as a caretaker, which is quite a step up for me. I'm quite impressed.
And just to finish off, can you tell me what you enjoy most about living in Hampstead?
Well, what I enjoy most about living in Hampstead is being in Hampstead. Being a person who's born and bred in Hampstead. My formative years were in Hampstead. I mean, I've travelled London, I've seen many cities in this country. I know many parts of London, but Hampstead would still be my preference, at first, foremost and last. Hence, money moving into Hampstead, because people love the ambience of Hampstead. It's still got a certain buzz. I mean, the pubs aren't as were. We had a very vibrant, artistic, bohemian crowd in all pubs. We had poets, we had actors, we had painters, playwrights, you name it. Still have a few living around, a few actors still around, because it's a very, very good address to live at. I mean, from Hampstead you can be in the city within, what, 20 minutes, half an hour? On tube? Not a problem. But it's still got that certain buzz. And occasionally myself, I will meet other people, indigenous people born and bred in Hampstead. Quite rare, but there's still a few of us left. But I guess within 10, 20 years, will just be a memory. And then that's the way things are.